going to discuss love and money and one of the most valuable life lessons I'll probably learn in my entire life. And that is going to set the stage for a discussion of how the influence of, I don't want to say capitalism because I'm not anti capitalist, but I think that we have maybe over immersed ourselves, or the strain of capitalism has been so, um, the forces have not been mitigated to an extent that allows for a healthy psyche in almost the entire population of Europe and the United States. Sorry about the light. Um, was somebody just unlike the video? Like what? What? Really? What could I possibly have said? By the way, happy um, capitalist murder day, I guess. Thanksgiving, first time catching alive. What's going on? And I want to thank Verone and Unknown People for another unlike. Man, what? Maybe it's a glitch and it's just flipping back and forth. I don't know. But I want to thank Verone and Unknown People for joining the Patreon. We really appreciate patrons. I'm demonetized and shadow banned, so without your support, I get nothing for this. But I just wanted to share with you guys, partly because it's Thanksgiving, and even though, the holiday I think has been kind of misrepresented, uh, it's still important to take every excuse we can find to remember what we're grateful for, right? I mean, with really every breath, we should be doing this. And I was just part of a tragedy recently that, that sort of thing really helps you to become sharply aware of the things in your life that really matter. And we also kind of got derailed. I mean, if you guys follow my channel, you probably watched my struggles over the last, 5 years as we built little businesses. COVID destroyed them, took away the post office, so our plant medicine business disappeared. We got demonetized. It's like every time we managed to get something new going, even the first Jungle Gnosis event, the indigenous had a protest and all of our guests got sent back to the countries they were coming from. So just over and over and over again, we have had forces bigger than us trip us up, basically. And so, that's definitely the case in the moment. And I think that also contributes to your awareness of what really matters when you get stripped down to absolute nothing. And what I realized is that my family, my partner, Ola, Jeff, my son's young, so kind of, but I think we take for granted that we are happy as long as we are just together. I own very little. We own very little. I really only think about, things I need. If I need a camera, then I want a camera. If I need a laptop, then I want a laptop. If I need strings, I want them. But I don't think about getting the new iPhone or, like what, I don't even know what consumers do, like capitalist consumer mindset. I don't even know what that is. I grew up with no indoor plumbing, bullet holes in my windows. I had thrift store clothes. I lived in the second wealthiest per capita county in the United States. And so, wealth was in my face all the time, but I didn't have, a TV. We didn't have a computer. Yeah, I can talk about the Patreon. There are different tiers. You can sign up for guitar lessons, or the $10 one I kind of consider minimum, although you can, $5 I think gets you access to the patron premiere and maybe some patron only content. And I do secret streams that we did like an entire 3 months, I think, on the 28th degree of Freemasonry directly from the Masonic Handbook that was formerly secret. And I think that was just absolutely stellar. That was really, really solid. Right now we're doing the fundamentals of the occult, and then you can also purchase blocks of screen time for consultations. A lot of my clients from that particular service report complete transformation in every area of their life and are still with me after a year or so. So it definitely seems to really, really work for people. And then I also do instruction in the ritual magic and illuminism and whatnot. So where were we at with this discussion of my anti-capitalist ways. I'm not anti-capitalist, by the way. I'm not really. I mean, I just discovered, I think, in my early 20s, because of exposure to the Grateful Dead, honestly, and the way they operated, where, a janitor once vetoed signing with Warner Brothers because he heard about what Warner Brothers had done to Frank Zappa. And so everyone in the room, everyone in the organization, the secretaries, everyone had equal say. So it was like a real democracy. And they also paid their employees like, $100,000, $150,000 a year, where people like Aerosmith were paying, the same uh, positions like $9 an hour. So they grew much more slowly, but they grew into the most successful touring machine in the history of the planet. And they did that without much radio support, and they didn't have to bow to anyone. They didn't have to make concessions to, the Babylon overlords. They did things their way. They made some sacrifices in order to do that. And, I kind of took that to heart as, you can serve the collective. You can live in a way that serves the collective and align yourself with forces even greater than you. And it may slow you down. It might not be the same, quick ticket to riches and narcissism and psychopathy and sociopathy and all of these side effects of unmitigated capitalist hunger, um, you know. But in the end, I think a lot of people, we've been brainwashed to believe that you cannot simultaneously act in the collective interest and your own interest. That, the general, like, North American conception of self-interests seems to be, exclusionary. So it's you and you alone and you first, and anyone that operates in a way that's contrary to that is a threat to the system or an idiot or both. Um, and I sometimes it might sound like I'm on some kind of like moral crusade to change the world, and that's not necessarily completely untrue. But at the end of the day, it's really just a matter of logic. It's rational to me to, support the people that have even less access than I do, even if I have almost nothing. You know, that's what makes sense to me. And I've seen the math, and I know that if everyone acted in this way, then everyone would be lifted up. Ultimately, it's in the best interest of everyone to think this way. And it has to start somewhere. So, um, that's just kind of the essential mind state, I think, to lift us out of the quagmire that we're in. And I'm noticing that we had like 15 people at some point, and talking like this does not seem to go over well, even with the kind of people that would click on one of my thumbnails. You know what I mean? It's duly noted, and extremely depressing, that this subject doesn't resonate more with people, because it's your own doom. You can continue down this path for about 6 more minutes, and then you can all kiss your asses goodbye. That's the reality. So, and this is something that I feel, a lot of the things I talk about, I'm not 100% sure, because I think, you have to be either an idiot or a madman to be completely sure about something most of the time. But in this case, I'm pretty sure that I know what I'm talking about. Um, yeah, but so just to kind of recap that realization I had, that, Enrica and I don't even think about material stuff. Like, we don't, unless we're in trouble with money, we don't care. We don't think about keeping it. We don't think about, you know, compiling it. Like, it's just, if we have enough, it's just not even on our minds. That's the end of it. Um, You know, I mean, you guys have seen the videos of us, like, we had like $6 left and we're feeding all the villages and the dog and stuff. Why? Because we had $6 left. You know, our refrigerator was full, our rent was paid, you know, we have our tools. So gotta feed the dogs. They're not our dogs, I don't care, you know. They're starving, feed them. So, and now, you know, I don't have a ton of time tonight, and I want to make sure that I get to kind of the flip side of this coin, which is what I've observed happening. Um, you know, the ultimate consequences of this sort of greed-based paradigm. Uh, this is not new to me, but and I can't remember what triggered it the other night, but I was thinking about Pink Floyd. And I don't know if you guys know the song Echoes, but it's like some of the most enlightened lyrics that you'll find in the entire rock and roll catalog. I think they were like 19 years old when they, you know, between 17 and 21 or something when they wrote that song. So they had this tremendously profound and deep wisdom when they were basically still children. Everyone but the guitarist was aristocracy. By the way, I'm literally sitting in the jungle, in case you guys are wondering. They were literally aristocracy, which means they were basically born wealthier than most people, most rich people can even conceive of, right? Gilmore, the guitarist, was the only blue collar, he was like a factory worker or something. They fought about percentages to the point where they still no longer speak to this day. And you could say, well, there was more to it, there was ego and whatnot, but fundamentally, the arguments from these guys that wrote Dark Side of the Moon and fucking Echoes were about percentage points. Percentages. We're not even talking about like tens of millions of dollars. You know? And I just... Oh, you know what it was? Actually, the Binance CEO getting in trouble for money laundering, right? That's another great one. The dude is guaranteed to die rich. There's no possibility that he's not going to have, you know, without breaking any laws, without risking his freedom, without harming anyone, he's gonna die richer than most people could ever dream. And he commits federal money laundering crimes. This is illness. Like, a lot of boomers, you know, one of the boomeritises is that, you know, that they're so heavily indoctrinated into this stuff that you could bring up the Pink Floyd thing and like 75% of them would argue that, you know, that they should get their percent, you know what I mean? Like, we have come to accept literal deranged psychopathic mental illness as normal conduct. People, I mean, can you imagine changing a planet, like having the kind of influence that Pink Floyd had? The Grateful Dead even did it. You know, when Garcia died, there was all kinds of crazy fighting about money and, you know. How is this possible? How is it possible? And people give me these answers that to me are just like gobbledygook. It doesn't make any sense at all. It's greed. What does that mean? Once you already know that you're never going to have to worry about a bill for the rest of your life, and you have money to leave your children, how are you going to fight with your bandmate who you have changed a planet with over 3% of royalties? How are you gonna drop a bomb? Now let's get really deep into it, right? How are you gonna give Native Americans, you know, blankets with leprosy on them or whatever? Because you need them to move out of your way or whatever, you know what I mean? Or starting wars and then funding both sides. Like, you know, it's everyone at this point I think knows what's happening in Palestine. There's oil under the Gaza Strip. Never heard this before, right? Oil under the Gaza Strip. And there are American manufactured weapons raining down on both sides somehow. You know, the elite have been creating these conflicts and then funding both sides forever. And yet, how many of you out there right now have taken a side, thinking you're actually taking a side? I stand with, like you saying you stand with something is like anything. It's nothing. It's less than nothing. It means absolutely nothing. And you're wrong. If you're supporting either side, yeah, I mean, there's stuff there that they want. But that's the thing, And the point I'm making here is we got to stop playing along entirely, Quit your virtue signaling. Stop caring about being ostracized. Speak the truth. Speak it loud. You know what I mean? And finish the process of extracting your head from your buttocks. If you're still buying into any of this stuff to any degree, you have to finish the process of removing your head from your anal cavity. It smells terrible in there, and you can't see what you're doing. How are you going to dance with your head up your butt? It's very difficult. I've tried many times. Foot in mouth and head up ass. But yeah, and I know maybe there's something wrong with my brain, or I do a pretty good job, I think, of having metacognition and like analyzing myself all the time to try to figure out what is going on exactly here. And I've noticed that I don't seem to have normal instincts, which it's very easy to interpret the consequences of that as like good moral behavior, when in reality it could just be a defect. But I'm just trying to understand like why I don't understand, and why so many people seem to go along with it as if what's happening in this world is normal and acceptable. And even if they don't think it's normal and acceptable, why aren't they rebelling more? Why haven't they checked out, moved to the Amazon rainforest or whatever, Like, what are you guys doing? I mean, I just can't wrap my head around it, I don't understand how people don't understand that at this point, if you're complicit, if you're compliant, you're complicit. If you're compliant, you're complicit. If you're compliant, you're complicit. It's facts. By the way, you can buy that t-shirt at my Etsy store, and support us on Patreon. Click the like button, share, subscribe. You can make contributions to the links via the links in the description, because I forgot to put them in the chat and it's difficult on the phone. By the way, if you guys have any questions about any off topics, feel free. I know I see questions in my community chat and forget to answer them and stuff. So, if there's anything on anyone's mind. And I wish I could remember all these examples that I came up with the other night of all these apparently enlightened people, still doing all this insane stuff. Billionaire defenders. You know what I mean? Your brain is gone. Like, literally, like, you don't even speak to me. Like, you've got literally like a cinder of, fucking burned coal in your head where your brain should be. If you literally are one of those people that like says that Elon Musk, his right to have all of that wealth should be protected. Like, it's a burnt cinder. There's nothing in there that's useful to anyone or this planet. You know what I mean? Like, that kind of extremism is terrifying. That, people, especially if you know the details. Like, do you guys know the details? Do you know where all this inflated wealth comes from in these economies? It comes from exploitation in other parts of the world. Yeah, that is way off topic, but I don't mind answering that all. Gay people, I think, probably are part of, and I'm not saying, look, my point of view on a lot of this stuff is not moral. Like, it's not based in morality or, I'm not saying necessarily that it's an engineered thing, you know, because there are elements of population control, I think, that are engineered, uh, almost out of necessity, right? I mean, you use medicines and, you know, technologies, artificial technologies, to preserve the lives of people that nature would destroy, and then you create entire gene pools that are, you know, swollen with these weak genes, and then how do you undo the damage when we reach an omega point of being overrun by unhealthy, I mean, I don't know how it is that some people don't believe in population control. I just don't understand that. But I think it's partly nature's way of trying to decrease the population. If you look as far back as, I mean, if you're asking me if I think it's immoral, I definitely do not think it's immoral. Nothing that happens between consenting people is immoral, as long as everyone is capable of consent. There's nothing immoral. It's just all experiences that people can have that are on the table for you. Um, but what was I saying about this? Oh, as far back as the Book of the Law in 1914, when Aleister Crowley's talking about how we'll know the new aeon is here and the details of the new aeon and what it's going to look like. One of the things he says is that people will become bisexual and epicene. And epicene is a kind of antiquated word that means without sexually defining characteristics. So non-binary. And they will also be communicating with entities using drugs, and the governments will become totally fascist, and power will be absolutely, I mean, it's crazy to read the introduction to the Book of the Law. Um, Gay people being with men instead of women, could that? No, it's not. Nothing goes against anything. I mean, in my opinion, there's a spectrum, and everything in the entire universe is a, you know, manifestation along vectors and spectrums, right? So there's like, you know, men that are almost absolutely feminine and women that are almost absolutely masculine, and, you know, every possible combination or position along that spectrum will be fulfilled somewhere in the universe by someone at some point. So, you know, people that talk about that from that point of view, obviously they're not wrong. But what we have is the politicizing, and then the propaganda machine using the politicizing and people taking this out of context to drive wedges and separate the population, right? It's distorted and exaggerated and misappropriated this idea of gender along a spectrum in order to keep the sheep asleep and the fights deep. Um, you know what I mean? That's that's what all that crap is. Yeah, Brom. No problem. Divide and conquer. Yeah, I mean that's definitely it. It's definitely it. And honestly, you know, I mean, I'm saying this all the time. I think that the reason there's such a strong effort right now to create so many wedge issues and drive them so deep is that we're so close to having the intelligence and the access to information. Um, what's going on, man? You know, to render the veil, to tear it down, and for everybody to be able to see things as they actually are, that they're kind of desperately, almost desperately. I mean, it's not really desperate in the sense that it's like chaotic. They know exactly what they're doing, but they do create these things and then use them to separate and divide, because we could very easily snap out of the coma of culture and overturn the benches. Yeah, Hegelian dialectic, you know, and to take that even a step further, if you look at the way that they orchestrate or the way they represent, or no, it is orchestrate the politics, or how they distribute them to the different demographics, with like Hamas, who has completely 180-degree values to the United States left, right? They make the left support Palestine. I'm not saying that I do or don't support Palestine, because I support all of the innocent people that are suffering because of this stupid shit. You know what I mean? It's not, that's just the common sense answer. It doesn't matter whose side it is. Like, are they innocent people suffering? Then that's not good. Um, not hard. But they get the left to support the ones that would throw the gay people off the building tops. Double think, yeah. And then they have the right supporting the Jewish state. And the right is constantly saying we need to get rid of all the Jews, and, well, not all the Jews, but the ones controlling the world or whatever. You know that rhetoric. That's deliberate, you know. And it has a dual function, at least dual, maybe more, because, you know, it keeps the individuals in a constant state of cognitive dissonance, so they're on the edge of fight or flight, which makes them dumber because anxiety and fear decreases IQ. And the other side does not use selective perception on their own demographic. Adrian, I'm going to get to that. You know, but they see the confusion on the other side, right? So the right sees the left supporting the Islamic people that, you know, are against all of their values, and then the left sees the right supporting the Jewish state and screaming their heads off about the Jews controlling everything. It's all deliberate to do this. You know, it keeps the two divided. It keeps people divided against themselves. It's, you know, extraordinary, and to an extent, I applaud them for being so adept at this, that they're, you know, rubbing people's noses in it. And, you know, even the people that think they're awake, most of them are not aware of this stuff to this extent. Most people end up not being awake. Most people end up just realizing that the narrative that they originally had accepted, something's wrong with it, and so they jump to another one. But it's just another trap. It's not actually a free-flowing, you know, free-thinking, fluid position. Because, you know, the truth is that any sort of dogmatic, fixed, rigid belief system is not going to be sufficient to maintain, you know, or to facilitate free thinking, critical thinking, and a truly free society. You know, really, the great thinkers that I've been aware of and watched, and I'm not putting myself in this category, but I definitely do this as well, where, you know, my thinking is not rigid and it changes over time. And I think the people that I admire have noticed that as well, that, you know, that type of person is in a free-flowing state and is not committed to any kind of prepackaged, prefabricated, engineered narrative, you know. All of those are engineered to maintain a certain status quo and to offer exclusivity. You know, it is that feeling of belonging to the superior political party, the superior race, the superior football team, even. You know, it all is a matter of playing on people's insecurities, fears, egos. Those are all three one thing, you know. Yeah, so he was asking about my Wanted Dead or Alive series. That's not exactly, but the point of that series was supposed to be to illustrate, you know, how much you can overcome. And I had just started to get to the part of the story where there was sort of a peak crescendo of trouble, and then the sort of ascent to higher ground. So I'm hoping that maybe this week or something. One of the reasons I'm stalling, honestly, is we don't have very good internet access here, and I would like to do the rest of that series with my good camera and, you know, not sitting in the jungle. So I'm trying to hold off until we can maybe get to Cusco. By the way, you guys, I have solved our shipping problems with the price was too high because the COVID closed the post office in Ecuador, but not here in Peru. So A lot of you guys have inquired about like different plants and rapes and stuff over the years, mapacho logs and whatnot. The shipping is within reason now, and so get a hold of me if there's something you want me to try to track down for you. There are literally hundreds of plants at the markets here, and they're definitely, they work. You know, jungle medicine works um, to a remarkable extent, and for things that modern medicine often fails. You know, I've watched someone cold turkey quit medication for epilepsy, not by my advice either, but he did, and we used ajo sacha and Banisteriopsis caapi and a few other jungle plants, and the side effect of quitting the medication should have been seizures. It's 0 seizures. While he was still on the medication, he had 2 in the first 24 hours he was here. So these jungle medications, jungle medicines definitely do work, and they legitimately do things that pharmaceutical medicine has failed to do utterly, completely, and entirely. So, you know, I would encourage anybody out there that is still trusting any part of the system to do anything for you at all whatsoever, you know, try to reorient yourself. Everyone is depending on you, you know. We have to disengage with the matrix. And we need to do it in a way that it works for us. You know, the entire point of the matrix in the first place was supposed to be that it was engineered to serve humanity. But we are serving the matrix now, and that is not what was intended. You know, we need to stop glorifying military service until we are fighting wars that only wars that are absolutely necessary and unavoidable. You know, we have to allow our own values to shift if we expect to see any major changes in the world. And I know it's a scary process. You know, one of the things I've observed in the last couple of weeks that, I mean, I've seen this my whole life, you know, but it's just come up a few times, is this fundamental human need to feel like you have answers, you know, that you're never going to have, for one thing, absolutely. But I know that opening ourselves up to the unknown, when we're talking about something on the level of a paradigm shift, like a global paradigm shift, I think people kind of intuitively know that that's going to uproot a lot of elements of the known. And that's a scary thought, even for somebody, you know, that has always lived on the fringes and existed kind of without security and certainty and all of those things. So it's not that I don't empathize. It's just that I know that the clock is running out, and we have a lot of potential here on this planet. You know, it's a beautiful place. The rainforest, if you've never been here, it's unimaginable. Just the energy of walking around in it, you know, much less all of these extraordinary creatures and medicines and all of the strange psychoactive things all over the place and the fruits everywhere. I mean, I've been here for years, and without even moving, you know, we did recently, but in our neighborhood, in the last jungle location, I would see new fruits in our neighborhood every few months that would just somehow find their way out of the jungle and just be there on the side of the road for us to buy. So, you know, when I think about the fact that this place is just being torn down to create a bunch of useless, meaningless, unnecessary crap for people that basically are reflections of that, to put it without putting it. You know, it's just like we at least need to make ourselves worthwhile, you know, and really open ourselves up to the majesty and the mystery and the power and the beauty and um, be expressions of that. If you know, if we're whether we're going to continue destroying it all or not, you know what I mean. At least justify our existence by being more interesting or something. Um, Another thing that I wanted to mention about this, because we started out with the love or money kind of conflict, um, and somebody actually in my community chat, and this is not uncommon. Um, I posted something about Palestine and Gaza, and this guy's like, "Good, get my bills down." I'm generally not in favor of the death penalty, but whoever that guy is, they should literally like put him in one of those rockets and shoot him to Gaza in it. I'm sorry, can you repeat the question? My chat doesn't stay on the screen, and it vanished before I could finish reading it. Something about Oh, do we need to invent more archetypes? Um, yeah, man, the shipping is actually totally reasonable now. And, you know, post COVID, everyone's economy is down. And there are all kinds of villages around here that, you know, it would be absolute godsend. And this is one of the things we loved so much about being, you know, near Tenna, is that we were the only source of income for these neighborhoods. You know, we were the only people bringing people there to pay their entrance fees and to buy their fruits. And, you know, we're feeding people. Um, so you know, it's one of the most gratifying things about this is to be able to funnel money into these communities, because when I was, you know, a young white trash kid with bullet holes in my windows and, you know, totally ostracized from all the rich kids around me and all that, the rainforest was one of the main things that kept me going. And, you know, to be able to return something to those people is very gratifying. And also their medicine uh, is helping us a lot, and they deserve to be compensated for that. Yeah, man. I mean, come on down. I'm definitely all about trying to build a community. I'm thinking like halfway between the jungle and Cusco would be a great place for a permanent village, or at least, I don't know, you know, some kind of community. I hate the idea of intentional communities because it always turns into a cult, or some egomaniac shows up and destroys everything. I feel like I could probably navigate all that though without allowing those things to happen. I don't think anyone would make it in there. I would detect them, you know, before they even manage to infect us. So that's definitely something that I have been discussing with a few people. Um, at any rate, though, somebody asked the question about the archetypes, and unfortunately, I didn't bring my phone charger out here, and it looks like we're gonna die soon. So I'll keep going until the phone dies. But no, we can't invent more archetypes. There's no need to invent more archetypes. Um, One of the most, I guess, I don't know if it's one of the most interesting, because ayahuasca visions are always interesting. Uh, but I had a vision once of the sun and the zodiac, and then it turned into like a ball of white light, like the spiritual sun, or I guess what New Agers like to call source. And it had the same zodiacal sign around it, but they were the archetypes. And Pachamama was like, this is, you know, how souls are sort of emanated, you know, and where you come out on this spectrum determines your archetype, and that of course aligns with the zodiac. And then I discovered that Jung actually had done that himself, and you know, the made a wheel that had both the zodiacal and archetypal. So I don't think that that's it's archetypes are not labels that we've made. They are um, frequencies that determine disposition and character and the fundamental essence of a person. Um, that's kind of the idea that I've come to accept over the years, I guess, that, there are certain types of people, they even generally tend to look a lot alike. Um, isn't the gesture archetype the most powerful of the subconscious or something like that? Well, that's a whole different realm of things. That's a different aspect of mind. And I don't know that the jester, I mean, the jester could correspond to like the fool, I guess. But if you're talking about those DMT jesters, they are tricksters. Um, I don't know if that would be the most powerful, though. I don't know what that means, powerful. Um, Entertaining. They're one of the more entertaining ones, for sure. Uh, yeah. So we cannot persist in this modality, mentality, and how can you find your archetype? Well, definitely don't go to any psychics asking them to. Do you know C.G. Jung, his Red Book, very profound work about archetypes? Yeah, I know Jung's Red Book. Um, and what a lot of people don't realize is it's actually modeled on the Book of the Law. Um, but yeah, and I'm sorry, I think I just missed a question. Um, Hi, who is that? Uh, well, oh yeah, I was starting to talk about the necessity of extricating ourselves from the mentality of the Western world. With the thing is though, and this is where, you know, we almost always go wrong as a society, as a culture, as a species, maybe. When people got sick of the uh, Judeo-Christian, Islamic kind of, patriarchal sky god bullshit, they rejected spirituality to an extent that has been extremely damaging. It has limited the scope and development of the human race. It has resulted in a crisis of purpose that is, uh, you know, destroying what's left of humanity, really. Um, so what our task in the present moment is to extract ourselves, but to bring with us the best elements of the system, you know. And I think a lot of people feel small, and the task is so great, and some of the players are so intimidating that it's hard to imagine taking responsibility for the transformation of an empire seriously as an individual. Um, but if you don't, who else will? And that's the tip of the spear there. If you don't, who else will? And I think, I've seen a lot of us are doing great work in that department. I've seen a lot of very highly evolved people in their, early and mid 20s right now that do not fit the media stereotypes, right? This is another big trick of the propaganda machine. They'll focus on the right wingers that are the most who really makes the world. The right wingers that are the most insane, ignorant, like can't put a sentence together. They're spitting teeth out while they're talking to you and stuff, And then sometimes people will get behind them with a camera, and you see all these cameras pointed on this like three people that they've kind of isolated, and there's a group of relatively normal people nearby that represent the majority. They do the same thing to the left. They find the blue-haired, um, you know, multi-gendered, Marxist, whatever, you know, and they point a bunch of cameras at her, and this is the left, this is the normal leftist. That kind of, you know, misrepresentation has been deliberately done to like Gen Z, or is it Alpha at this point? Let's see, 2012 is Alpha, right? So that would be 10-year-olds. So no. Um, but you know, I'm part of the reason I'm mentioning that is because it's actually better out there than the media um, suggests. And I think we forget as well that the algorithm is not our friend. It's engineered to hide people like me and to push all of these. I mean, someone proved, I don't remember how this happened, but somebody proved that the YouTube algorithm is actually designed to promote divisive subjects, right? So that is exactly what I'm talking about. Yeah, one's purpose is definitely linked to one's archetype. I mean, absolutely, um, for sure. You know, and I think that one of the things we miss on that journey, since it's come up, is that understanding the purpose, the purpose of, you know, the human race in general, having some kind of context for that, and then sort of placing your own purpose within that context is part of this that gets overlooked a lot. And I think it's really the place to start. Um, Meaning that, as far as I can tell, and it seems that, you know, the best minds that I've ever been aware of, Aldous Huxley, Timothy Leary, uh, Aleister Crowley, Jerry Garcia, uh, Carl Sagan, you know, I mean, a lot of really brilliant people, by my estimation, have, you know, been in sync about this. That we are the sentience of the universe. We are the organs that have been sent out into the universe just to experience. That's it. There's nothing beyond that. And so, you know, bearing that in mind, I think when you are trying to identify exactly what your individual purpose is and how to relate to that greater purpose, it bears with it the added bonus of aligning you with a higher purpose without having to believe in a sky god, or, you know, aligning yourself with some dogma or some group, uh, and that gives you power beyond yourself and your purpose, right? You are aligned with fundamental symmetries in the universe